ask you a question. When you hear the word board game, do you think of a cardboard box full of a million tiny little pieces? Because that's really what I do. But there's a whole genre of board game that's really about a story and beautiful writing and challenging puzzles that takes you on a journey and connects you with characters and that story. I am talking to Rita Orlov of Post Curious. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You started out as a game designer. How did you get your start in board games and board game design?
So I started out actually through escape rooms. I used to work at an escape room and I started designing puzzles there. And after I switched jobs, I still really wanted to design puzzles, but I couldn't really go open my own escape room. So I tried to think of something that I could do on the side. And so I started to design my first game, The Tale of Ord, just kind of on nights and weekends, very much a passion project. And that's that's how I ended up coming into the industry.
Passion projects are, they can be a double-edged sword. Your transition from a game designer to a game publisher, I kind of see it as if a game plays bad, it's the fault of the designer. If a game sells bad, it's the fault of the publisher. Is that kind of accurate?
Wow, what a question. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see myself as like a designer before a publisher, or I guess because I self-published, I was still thinking of myself as like a game designer. Um, and the very first game I made was kind of an experiment because there wasn't really that many things in this genre at the time. And so I was like, are people even going to buy this thing? Like, are they going to like it? Is there a market for this? And so it was a totally experimental thing. And it turned out that there is a market for it. And of course, now it's grown significantly. But I mean, yeah, I guess as a publisher, your job is sort of to market a game and make sure that it sells. But I wouldn't want to publish a game that I didn't think people would enjoy playing. So I think it all starts with the product, and no amount of great marketing is going to sell a bad product.
Right. How are you kind of adapting to your kind of new role in as publishing someone else's game now? Is it
Well,
is it weird?
I don't know, it feels like a kind of natural transition in a way because I think a big part of it for me has been figuring out how to sort of be more of a creative director and not just a designer, but because I come from an art and design background, that comes sort of more naturally to me. So the thing that I struggle with is more like the business and the marketing side, which have been sort of just, stumbling my way through and like, it mostly succeeding, so it's been good, but that's definitely not really my forte. I'm more just into making things that look and feel good to people, and I think it's kind of been successful based on the fact that people enjoy playing the games and less so on like kind of targeted marketing efforts in the way that somebody who's maybe more specifically like business trained might approach it in a different way.
Right, right. Tell me a little bit about Post Curious, and I know that more of a puzzle game genre that kind of focuses on it. Tell me a little bit about that and how why you kind of chose the Morrison Game Factory as something to work with.
Yeah. So Post Curious focuses on narrative tabletop puzzle games, which I think is my passion and my strength. So that's why I've chosen to focus on that. I enjoy all sorts of board games and video games, but I think there are a lot of people out there who do those things well, and this is the thing that I do well. So it makes sense to kind of put my effort toward that. Um, Morrison Game Factory came to me from Lauren Bello, who is a TV and film writer. You might know her from Sandman and Foundation. So she is incredibly talented, but also very immersed in the puzzle and escape room world. So she has played so many of these types of games. She understands the genre very well. And the Morrison Game Factory came from a Secret Santa project during the beginning of the pandemic, where a bunch of puzzle and game enthusiasts came together and decided to create little experiences for each other for a Secret Santa. And so she created the Morrison Game Factory, and um, the person who received it really enjoyed it. A few other people got to play her copy, and they all really liked it and were encouraging Lauren to put it on Kickstarter and publish it. And Lauren was like, well, I already have a job. I don't know if I really want to become a game publisher all of a sudden. It would be nice to get this game out to people, but I don't know if that's really an undertaking that I want to pursue. And so I said, hey, why don't you send me this game? I'll play it. And at that point, I had already published a couple of games, and so that seemed like maybe a feasible undertaking for me. And so she sent me a copy. I played it. It was delightful, and I was like, people should absolutely play this. It's great. And then at the same time, I was like, hey, how about you work with me on my rewrite of my first game? Because I was looking for a writer at the time as well. So we actually ended up collaborating, and I recently, my previous Kickstarter before this was for Threads of Fate, which was a remake of that first game that I had made a limited edition of. So this was kind of a new production of that with some improvements, and Lauren's writing on it as well. So we put that out together, and then I worked with her to develop Morrison Game Factory from her prototype to something that I would be able to actually put out to market. So we made some graphic design changes. I hired an illustrator to design the box cover, made a few changes to the components just to make them possible for mass manufacturing, because a few things were kind of handmade and they needed to be reworked a little bit. So yeah, it felt like a natural progression, taking kind of all of the things that I've learned about production and putting things on Kickstarter over the last few years, and then taking a game from a really talented creator and bringing that knowledge to it and making it into something that I can also publish.
Right. Now, Lauren is a Nebula Award winner, which is for science fiction and fantasy. Is there kind of a lot of that in the story of this game, or is she kind of
a little bit? I think one of the reasons why it fits well into the Puss Curious catalog is because all of our games are kind of a little bit magical. So they're kind of set in our reality, but there's like a little extra layer of reality on top of that. And that's kind of it's a little bit of supernatural, a little bit of magic, but it's not something as specific as like, wow, why is this name escaping me right now?
Harry Potter?
Not what I was gonna say, but also not like that. Yeah, so not quite a total level of fantasy, but it's more like blurring the lines between like our reality and these little magical moments that happen in the game.
Oh, that sounds very fun. Sounds kind of whimsical and very interesting. Tell me a little bit about how the game plays. And now we're going to have to kind of dance around plot points. We don't want to give those away. But, can you kind of tell people who might be looking at, at a game like this, kind of what their tabletop experience will kind of be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's not really any setup or rules in the game. You really just open the box, and there's a letter that you read to get started. And then you start by examining all of the different objects that you'll find in there. So there's a file folder with some maintenance logs. There's a catalog of games from the Morrison Game Factory, and there's a few other objects. And all of these have kind of puzzle bits embedded in there. And you start by figuring out where to begin, which there are some guiding points in the letter for that. And you'll end up also going to an online interface, which will be kind of a crucial part of the story as well.
So is there a,
And so
it's a website, or is there like an app or something that provides?
it's a website, so you don't have to download anything like that. It's just going to guide you through the story and deliver parts of the narrative, and you'll be able to like enter your solutions to things through that portal, and it will kind of continue through this through the story. But unlike in some games, it's actually quite important to the narrative how like the delivery of this is not totally arbitrary. Like there is a reason why you have to go to this portal and why it's important.
Gotcha. Is this a branching story?
It's a pretty linear story. There are a few times where you can do things simultaneously, like solve a couple different puzzles at the same time, but story-wise it's pretty linear.
I mean, I guess I'm kind of thinking in terms of like a traditional move your pieces board game. I'm always looking at the replayability. And is replayability something that is even kind of considered in a story game, or is it really focused on like a movie? It's a really enjoyable experience, but it is more linear.
Yeah, it's more of the latter, and that goes for pretty much almost all escape room games. Is once you've solved the puzzles and you've solved the story, you already know what's going to happen. You know how it happens, and so that does take away a bit of the mystique. Sometimes if it's been 5 years, I'll replay a game, and you can kind of enjoy it all over again.
Well,
But
you could probably enjoy it with other people too.
that's true. But I think it's really more about creating that singular experience. And the value that you get from a game is not necessarily from how many times you've played it. And a lot of my favorite games that I've played are, because of the uniqueness of the experience. And it doesn't matter that you've only played it once.
Right. Well, you think of movies, you think of books. Some of the best books I've ever read. I've just read it once, and that was, and it's still, something that's great. I just wanted to, just so our audience was sort of, aware. Like I said, I'm more from the background of like the traditional, a board game, and a game like this is something that's kind of new to me. And I just want to make sure that people know exactly what they're getting into, so they'll be able to enjoy the experience fully, and not be kind of weighted down with misconceptions.
Yeah, and it is possible to reset the game, so you can pass it on to another player, and we encourage that as well, but just for sharing the puzzle love. There's a component that you might write on, but you can use a pencil and erase it, or you can print out a new one. We offer a PDF online that you can download, so it's not like there's nothing in the game that needs to be destroyed through the gameplay. So it is possible to just like repackage it and give it to somebody else.
Well, these kind of puzzle things are bigger than I thought. Escape rooms are really really big, and road rallies even are. I guess there's groups and clubs that do that. That's a very puzzle based progression, and obviously there is a lot of people that are interested in this genre. I think it was funded on Kickstarter in, was it 6 minutes, 6 hours,
6 hours.
6 hours? Okay.
Not quite as fast as 6 minutes. But
Oh, come on, 6 hours though. That's huge. I mean, how long was it expected? Or how long was it put out there for? What was sort of the hope?
I hoped we'd fund on the first day, but
Okay.
that's also been our trend really for all of our campaigns are actually funded within just a few hours, and
Oh, okay.
been very lucky for that. But I think the audience is enthusiastic about
I'll say.
these types of games. They will back it pretty quickly, and I appreciate them very much for that. But we've also worked hard to kind of build up that audience and also build up a trust with our audience that like we're going to deliver the game to you and it's already complete, and it's
Right.
there are people who will put things on Kickstarter that aren't quite done, or like they're showing prototypes, whereas we have like a finished game. There are reviews to back it up and people saying like this is good, it exists, it will get delivered to you. So
And what are some of those next steps for delivery, and what's the I guess short and midterm future?
Yeah, I mean, the game is already finished, so the only things that we need to do after the Kickstarter is to just add in some extra names of people who backed it, to get their name into the game, and finalize the files, and then we can send it off to get it printed. So pretty much as soon as we have the funds, we're sending it to our production partners and saying, go ahead and, print X number of copies.
Okay, so people could get their hands on it, in next couple of months, probably, maybe.
Well, not quite that quickly, but
okay.
I think our official delivery deadline is August of next year, but I'm thinking it will most likely be late spring if all goes well. So it'll be a couple of months to print things and then a couple of months to ship, as it always, you never know with the freight shipping how long it's going to take, and sometimes things will move on to the next boat or whatever, and it's a little bit unpredictable. But yeah, if I'm kind of hoping we'll finish up production around February, and then we can get it to people around May.
Okay. I know nothing about the publishing of games, so forgive my ignorance.
No, it's totally fine. It's a great question.
Yeah, I didn't mean to briefly set the audience's expectations and then have to have you change those. So that was my bad.
Yeah, it's boats across the ocean take a long time is the bottom line.
True. Well, you have obviously have a lot of people that are interested in it, and you have a history of producing good quality. So hopefully you get that funding all squared away ASAP.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Now, this game sounds very interesting. The whole genre sounds very interesting to me. I'm showing my noobness in not knowing too much about and having played some of these games. What makes this game kind of special or different from other games that people might have played like this?
I think what drew me most to it was really the writing. And Lauren is such a gifted writer. The way that she tells the story is so good, and it sucks that I can't say much about it because it will spoil it for people, but it's been really heartening reading everybody's reviews of the game so far, because I feel like people have really gotten into the story, and there is a character that you kind of grow to really love, and I feel like that's kind of rare in these types of games, and I feel like it's usually more about the goal. Like if you're playing an escape room game, it's kind of like finding an artifact or like the goal of escaping, whereas in this case solving the puzzles is really driving forward the story. But what that means in this case is also you're just learning more about this character that you're trying to help, and he is very charming, and so there's a lot of different kind of emotional beats that happen in this game, and I think that's kind of what makes this experience a special one.
Kind of reminds me of, I don't, like I said, I didn't play very many story games, but I really do dig the like Steam or some like video games that are very, very story given. Very, very basic. 8-bit. Sally Face, Undertale. Things like that. It just the writing and the story in that is just so fascinating and so engaging. And it would be awesome to have the tabletop experience with that, and it sounds like that's what this would bring. I'm really happy that you were able to join me today and talk a little bit about the Morrison Game Factory, and I'll have a link to Post Curious down in the description.
Thanks so much for having me, Jason.
So thanks, Rita, for joining us on Inside Board Games, and thank you for tuning in and watching. Go out and get yourself a copy of the Morrison Game Factory. We'll see you next time.